Let me ask you something. Not a question about your job or your salary or your 5-year plan. I want to ask you something that most people go their entire lives without ever truly answering. Why do you wake up in the morning? Not because your alarm went off, not because you have to, but why, deep in your chest, do you want to wake up? In Japan, specifically on a tiny island called Okinawa, there are more people over the age of 100 living per square kilometer than anywhere else on Earth. Not just surviving, thriving, working, laughing, dancing, gardening at 95, playing sports at 104. Scientists went there expecting to find the secret in the food or the water or the genetics. What they found was something far more powerful, a single word: Ikigai. This story begins on a rainy night in Tokyo. Two writers, Héctor García, a Spaniard living in Japan, and Francesc Miralles, a fellow author from Barcelona, met for the first time in one of those impossibly small Tokyo bars where you're always just a little too close to the strangers beside you. They'd read each other's work, but they'd never met. That night, they talked about something that had been bothering both of them, a question the Western world doesn't seem to have a good answer to. Why do some people seem to know exactly what they're living for, while others drift through life feeling empty, confused, like they're just going through the motions? At some point in that conversation, the word Ikigai came up. In Japanese, Ikigai is written with 2 characters. Iki means life, gai means to be worthwhile. Put them together and you get something like the happiness of always being busy, the reason you get up in the morning, the force that makes your life feel like it means something. But here's the thing, and this is important. Ikigai is not a grand declaration. It's not about writing a mission statement for your life or finding your one cosmic purpose. It's quieter than that. One woman in Ogimi, the small village in Okinawa they later visited, a place so famous for its longevity it's been nicknamed the Village of Long Life, put it simply when they asked her, "I plant my own vegetables and cook them myself. That's my Ikigai." That's it. Not a career, not fame, not a legacy. Just her garden, her kitchen, and the quiet joy of tending to both. The authors, fascinated, realized that not a single book in Western psychology or personal development had ever brought this concept to a Western audience. So they booked flights to Okinawa and spent a week in Ogimi interviewing over 100 of its eldest residents, sitting at their kitchen tables, attending their birthday parties, dancing at their festivals. What they discovered became the book Ikigai, the Japanese secret to a long and happy life. And what I'm going to share with you today isn't just a summary, it's an invitation. Imagine arriving in a town where the youngest person at the birthday party is 83. That's what the authors experienced at a community center in Ogimi. They walked in and were cheerfully greeted with, "The youngest among us is 83, as if that were something to brag about. And in a way, it absolutely is. One of the women they spent time with was 88-year-old Yuki, who was still driving, and driving fast, apparently, with her 99-year-old co-pilot sitting beside her. Over sushi and green tea, Yuki told them something unexpected. She said, "Food won't help you live longer. The secret is smiling and having a good time." Now, before we dismiss that as the charming wisdom of an old woman who got lucky with her genes, let's look at the science. Okinawa is one of 5 regions on Earth that researchers have identified as blue zones, places where people consistently live much longer than the global average. The other 4 are Sardinia in Italy, Loma Linda in California, the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, and Icaria in Greece. What do these places have in common? Very little geographically. Very different climates, diets, religions, and cultures. But there are a handful of things every single blue zone shares. A strong sense of community, a diet that is light and mostly plant-based, regular, gentle physical movement, a low-stress approach to daily life, and, perhaps most importantly, a clear sense of purpose. In Okinawa, the people the authors interviewed had blood tests that showed fewer free radicals. the molecules responsible for cellular aging. They suffered from fewer chronic illnesses. They had lower rates of heart disease, cancer, and dementia. Women experienced more moderate hormonal changes. The rate of depression was a fraction of what you see in Western societies. And one of the key differences researchers believe is the Ikigai that shapes their lives. But there's something even more striking than the science. It's the way these people talked about their lives. When asked about the secret to long life, the residents of Ogimi didn't say, "I exercised every day," or "I followed a strict diet." They said things like, "Getting together with my friends is my most important Ikigai. We all get together here and talk. It's very important. Chatting and drinking tea with my neighbors, that's the best thing in life. And singing together. I laugh wherever I go. Laughter is the most important thing. Don't worry. Keep your heart young. Open your heart to people with a nice smile." One man who had just turned 89 put it so simply it almost stopped me in my tracks. There's no secret to it. The trick is just to live. Just to live. Not to optimize your life. Not to hustle and grind. Not to achieve and accumulate, but to actually inhabit your life. To show up for it. To tend to it the way you tend to a garden. Patiently, lovingly, day by day. The people of Ogimi are not in a rush. They have somewhere to be, their garden, their friends, their dance class, but they are never frantic about getting there. They live, as the authors put it, always pursuing their Ikigai, but never in a rush. There's a concept in Okinawa called moai, a close-knit group of friends who look out for one another, who meet regularly, who contribute to each other's well-being financially and emotionally. It evolved during hard times, when farmers would pool resources to help each other through bad harvests. Today, it's just the way life is structured there. You are never truly alone in Ogimi, and it turns out that might matter more than any superfood or supplement. Let me tell you about a man who discovered the power of purpose in the darkest possible place. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist, brilliant, accomplished, building a thriving practice in Vienna. Then, in 1944, he was arrested and sent to Auschwitz. He lost almost everything: his manuscripts, his home, members of his family. But one thing they could never take from him, and this is what Frankl would spend the rest of his life teaching, was his freedom to choose his attitude. Even in the concentration camp, Frankl noticed a pattern. The prisoners most likely to survive were not always the strongest or the healthiest. They were the ones who had something to live for, a book they still wanted to write, a child they needed to get back to, a mission that was not yet finished. Frankl went on to develop a school of psychotherapy called logotherapy, from the Greek logos, meaning purpose or meaning. Its central insight is almost dangerously simple. A person who has a reason to live can endure almost anything. He wrote, "He who has a why to live for can bear with almost any how," a line he borrowed from Nietzsche, and one that proved itself true in the most extreme circumstances imaginable. The authors connect Frankl's work directly to Ikigai, because both are asking the same question: what is your reason for being? And both are warning us about the same danger. Have you ever woken up on a Sunday and felt empty? Not tired, not sad, just hollow. Like the day stretches out in front of you with nothing meaningful to anchor it. You scroll your phone, you watch something, you eat something, and by evening you feel strangely worse than when you woke up. Frankl had a name for this. He called it Sunday neurosis, the existential emptiness that creeps in when the busyness of the week falls away and you're left face to face with the question of whether your life actually means something. It's more common than we admit, and it's becoming more common. In a study conducted at Frankl's clinic, 55% of patients were experiencing some degree of existential crisis. Not clinical depression, not a diagnosable illness, just a deep, quiet sense that their life lacked meaning. 55%. And here's the frightening thing. That was decades ago, before smartphones, before social media, before the peculiarly modern loneliness of being constantly connected and yet profoundly unseen. The authors make a subtle but devastating observation. Many of us do what we are told to do or what we see others doing, rather than what we actually want to do. And we try to fill the gap between the life we're living and the life we long for with consumption, buying things, watching things, eating things, chasing pleasures that are over as soon as they begin. But it never works, because pleasure is not the same as purpose. Pleasure is a full stomach. Purpose is a reason to cook. Pleasure fades, purpose sustains. This is what Ikigai is. It is not a hobby you pick up on weekends. It is the deeper current running beneath your days, the thing that makes you feel, even on difficult days, that you are exactly where you are supposed to be, doing exactly what you are supposed to be doing. And the extraordinary news, the news that the people of Ogimi embody every single day, is that your Ikigai does not have to be grand. It just has to be yours. There is a moment, I think most of us have felt it, when you're doing something you love, and suddenly an hour has passed as if it were 5 minutes. Maybe it was writing, or cooking, or coding, or playing an instrument, or losing yourself in a book, or being in a deep conversation where the whole world outside that state has a name. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, after decades of research, thousands of interviews with chess players and surgeons and athletes and artists, called it flow. Flow is the state of being completely absorbed in what you're doing. Your ego fades, time disappears. There's no past, no future. There is only the task and you moving together. Csikszentmihalyi described it as the state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The experience itself is so enjoyable that people will do it even at great cost for the sheer sake of doing it. Now, here's where the book makes a connection that I find genuinely beautiful. Flow and Ikigai are deeply linked because the activities most likely to pull you into flow are usually connected to your Ikigai. When you are flowing, you are living your purpose. When you are living your purpose, flow comes more easily. They feed each other. The authors described visiting a small town in Japan called Kumano, famous for its handcrafted makeup brushes. After touring the factories, they realized they hadn't seen the most important part of the process, the person who actually places every bristle into every brush head. They were taken to a separate building, a small room, lovely natural light, and there she was, a woman, completely still, completely focused, her hands moving so quickly the authors needed a high-speed camera to capture her movements. Every bristle of every brush the company sold passed through her hands. She had been doing this for years. She hadn't noticed them come in. When they finally got her attention, she looked up. Her eyes were smiling. She was proud. The president of the company told them, "This Takumi is one of the most important people in the company." A Takumi, a Japanese word for someone who has reached the highest level of mastery in a particular craft. Not a celebrity, not an influencer, a woman in a quiet room doing one thing with total devotion. That is flow. That is Ikigai. Think about the greatest makers and creators the world has ever seen. Steve Jobs visited Japan obsessively, drawn to the combination of simplicity, precision, and deep intention he found in Japanese artisans. He once bought 12 handcrafted teacups from a ceramics master in Toyama, and they were his last purchase from that artisan before he died. Jiro Ono, the sushi chef made famous by the documentary Jiro Dreams of Sushi, has been making sushi every day for more than 80 years. His restaurant has 3 Michelin stars and seats just 10 people. When asked why he never expanded, why he never opened a second location, his answer was essentially, "Why would I? I'm not trying to build an empire. I'm trying to make perfect sushi." Hayao Miyazaki, the legendary animator behind Studio Ghibli, Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro, Princess Mononoke, announced his retirement in 2013. The very next day, he went back to the studio and sat down to draw. His colleagues stared at him. Nobody said a word. A year later, he announced he wouldn't make any more feature films, but he would keep drawing until the day he died. Can someone retire from their Ikigai? Can you retire from a thing that makes you feel alive? The answer these artists give us is no. Let's talk about some of the longest living people in recorded history, not as statistics, but as human beings with things to say. Misao Okawa lived to 117. She was asked repeatedly for her secret to long life. Her answer was always the same and always delivered with a smile: eating sushi and sleeping. When pressed harder, she would say, "I ask myself the same thing." Jean Calment of France lived to 122, the longest confirmed human lifespan in history. She rode a bicycle until she was 100. She stopped smoking at 120 when cataracts made it hard to get the cigarette to her lips. On her 120th birthday, she looked at the crowd and said, "I see badly, I hear badly, and I feel bad, but everything's fine." Walter Bruning lived to 114 and gave interviews right up until the end. His advice was this: your mind and your body. You keep both busy, you'll be here a long time. He also said something that I think is deeply underrated. He was not afraid of dying. We're all going to die, he said. Never be afraid to die, because you're born to die. There's a freedom in that, isn't there? When you stop clinging to life out of fear, you can actually start living it out of love. And then there was Hokusai, the Japanese artist who created some of the most iconic woodblock prints in history, including the Great Wave. He lived to 88, and at the end of his life, he wrote something extraordinary. He said, "All that I have produced before the age of 70 is not worth being counted. It is at age 73 that I have somewhat begun to understand the structure of true nature. At 80, I shall have made still more progress. At 90, I hope to have penetrated the mystery of things. At 100, every point and every line shall be instinct with life." He was just getting started at 73. What does that say to you? It says something to me about the lie we've been told, that life peaks in your 20s and 30s and then slowly winds down, that the best is always already behind you, that at a certain age you stop becoming and just are. The people in this book dismantle that lie completely. Carmen Herrera, a painter who entered her 100th year, sold her first canvas at age 89. Today, her work hangs in the Tate Modern and the Museum of Modern Art. Architect Frank Gehry, at 86, was still designing buildings that would take 7 years to complete. Not despite his age, because of it. He said, "Stay curious about everything. You will automatically be in your time. There is no expiry date on a life that has meaning." So, how do you actually find your Ikigai? And how do you live in a way that honors it? The book offers a beautifully simple framework. Your Ikigai exists at the intersection of 4 things: what you love, what you are good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. Where all 4 overlap, that is your Ikigai. But the authors are careful not to make this feel like a corporate exercise. Most of the people in Ogimi never drew a Venn diagram. They just lived close to what mattered to them every day without overthinking it. So here are the actual practical lessons from the book, distilled from 100 interviews with people who have collectively lived thousands of years. 1. Don't retire. Keep doing what you love for as long as your body allows. In Japanese, there is no word that means retirement in the Western sense. The idea of completely leaving behind work and purpose. Staying active isn't just good for the body. It is, the research suggests, essential to the will to live. 2. Take it slow. One of the most repeated phrases in the Ogimi interviews was some version of slow down, not because speed is immoral, but because the rush of modern life disconnects us from the present moment, which is the only place Ikigai can actually be found. You can't find meaning in a moment you blew past without noticing. 3. Don't eat until you're full. The Japanese practice hara hachi bu, eating until you're about 80% full. It's not about restriction. It's about not burdening your body with more than it needs. The Okinawan diet, rich in tofu, sweet potatoes, vegetables, small amounts of fish, is light and varied. The body is treated as something to be cared for gently, not stuffed and ignored. 4. Surround yourself with good friends. The moai, the close circle of trusted companions who look out for you, is perhaps the single most underrated factor in the longevity equation. Loneliness kills. Community heals. This isn't poetic, it's biological. Human beings are not meant to navigate life alone. 5. Get in shape for your next birthday. Exercise in the blue zones is almost never intense. It's a walk in the morning, work in the garden, a gentle stretch, tai chi. The body needs movement, not punishment. 6. Smile and acknowledge people. One elderly man described his daily routine. Every morning, between 7:20 and 8:15, he stood outside his house and said good morning to every child walking to school, waved at every car going by. Drive safely, he'd call out, then he'd go inside. That was part of his Ikigai, the simple act of being seen and seeing others, of mattering to someone, even briefly, every single day. 7. Reconnect with nature. The people of Ogimi are deeply connected to the land. They grow food. They walk near the sea. They feel in a real sense that the mountains and forests and water are alive, full of spirits that deserve respect. This isn't superstition. It's a way of being humble in the world, of remembering that you are part of something larger than your own story. 8. Give thanks. Every morning in Ogimi, many residents go to their butsudan, a small home altar, and light incense, giving thanks to their ancestors. It's a way of beginning each day with gratitude rather than anxiety, of saying, I am here. I did not arrive alone. I am grateful. 9. Live in the moment. This might be the hardest one for people like us, people who are always planning, always anxious about the future, always replaying the past. The centenarians of Ogimi are not nostalgic, and they are not anxious. They are present. They know that the garden needs tending today, that the friend needs visiting today, that the tea needs drinking today. The present moment is not an obstacle to a meaningful life. It is the meaningful life.
Before the authors left Ogimi, they stopped at a small market at the edge of town. The only things sold there were local vegetables, green tea, shikuwasa juice, and small bottles of spring water from the Yanbaru forest. The label on the water bottles read, longevity water. They bought some. They drank it in the car park, looking out at the sea, half joking with each other about whether this would be the thing that finally unlocked the secret. But of course, they already had the secret. Not in the water, not in the food, not in the green tea, in the way these people lived. Near the edge of town, there was a statue with an inscription, a declaration from the Ogimi Federation of Senior Citizens Clubs, written in 1993. It read, "At 80, I am still a child. When I come to see you at 90, send me away to wait until I'm 100. The older, the stronger. Let us not depend too much on our children as we age. If you seek long life and health, you are welcome in our village, where you will be blessed by nature, and together we will discover the secret to longevity." I keep coming back to that phrase. The older, the stronger. Not weaker, not fading, stronger. Because that's what happens when you have Ikigai, when you have a reason to get up, when you have a garden to tend, friends to meet, a craft to practice, a love to nurture, a community to serve. You don't wind down, you deepen. So let me ask you again, why do you wake up in the morning? If the answer came quickly and clearly, that's beautiful. Hold on to it, protect it. If the answer didn't come, if there was a small silence where the answer should have been, then this is your invitation. Not to panic, not to completely reinvent your life by next Tuesday, but to begin paying attention, to notice which moments make time disappear, to notice which people make you feel most alive, to notice which tasks, however small, however ordinary, make you feel like yourself. Your Ikigai is already inside you. It's been there all along. You don't need to invent it, you just need to find it. And when you do, and you will, don't retire from it. Don't rush past it. Don't let the noise of the world drown it out. Tend to it every day, the way a woman in Ogimi tends her garden, with patience, with love, with your whole, quiet, beautiful life. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this video meant something to you, if it gave you even one small thread to pull on, share it with someone you think might need it. A friend who's been feeling lost, a parent who retired and doesn't quite know what they are now, a young person trying to figure out where to begin. Ikigai doesn't belong to Japan, it belongs to all of us. The book is Ikigai, The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life by Héctor García and Francesc Miralles. I strongly recommend reading it yourself, slowly, with tea, like the people of Ogimi would. And one last thing, if someone asks you today what you're living for, and you don't have an answer yet, that's okay. Just keep asking. The asking is part of the finding. Take care of yourself. See you in the next one.